Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. I went to Blackpool for an afternoon stroll recently with some friends, and I'm just going to come out with it. I was a little bit shocked at the amount of brown faces and ladies in hijabs that I spotted. In fact, at one point I looked around and I was almost taken back to the unfortunate times I had to visit Luton, birthplace of gammon baiting twatbag Tommy Robinson himself. Now, I'm actually very proud of the fact that we live in a multicultural country. Don't worry, I haven't turned into a far-right fash lad, but it made me think that it makes sense for a party like Reform to think that they could get a foothold there, doesn't it? As we know, they target communities that have seen an influx of migrants or asylum seekers, or illegal immigrants as they call them. And if said community has suffered lack of funding, Tory austerity and continued decline for decades, that's all the better for the pale blue prejudice spreaders, isn't it? Well, Blackpool never held any local elections, so Farage and his Faustian fuckwits weren't able to fool local racists and gullible people into electing them there yet. But there's one place where they're certainly trying to woo the weak-minded and witless, and they're getting started early for the 2027 locals. You see, just outside of most of the tourist area of Blackpool is a pub called the Talbot. And this is it. Look at the fucking state of that. Well, all is not as bright and colourful as it looks at the Talbot. We'll have a little chat about it right after this. 'Tis Power to the People with Graeme Pryce, where sometimes he is naughty or nice. If you like the vibe, hit like and subscribe. But don't hit the like button twice. Thank you. The Talbot, or the Reform Pub as it's being called lately, is an ex-Conservative club, which is fitting considering practically all of Reform's biggest names are also ex-Conservatives, or failed Tories, depending on how you want to put it. But Graham, you're just judging them because they're standing up for reform. You'd love it if it was a Labour-branded pub, wouldn't you? We'll be able to tell the people who never watch past the first 30 seconds, because that's the kind of stuff they'll be saying in the comments, and I'm wondering why we're laughing at their pathetic predictability. The owner of the cyan-painted shithole claims that it's a welcoming environment for all. But I've done a bit of research and I found that doesn't necessarily ring true. As with pretty much everything Reform and their advocates do and support, you only have to scratch the surface to see what these people really stand for and just how dishonest they are. The owners have joked about serving pints of Remainer tears and Blackpool's best gammon. So I think we can guess how welcoming they are to black people, or God forbid, someone who walked in with an I voted Remain t-shirt on. But it does go a little bit deeper than casual racism and pathetic slogans. In August of 2024, the Talbot was set to host a neo-Nazi event, including several acts with songs about hating Jews and celebrating Hitler's life and claiming that the Holocaust was all fake, and even if it wasn't, the Jews deserved it anyway. Thankfully, there are clearly still some decent people left in Blackpool, and somebody informed the action group Hope Not Hate, who managed to get the event cancelled. When asked about the plans, co-owner Nick Lowe said, "It's naught to do with me. I just rent the room out. I'm not racist at all, but I have to make me money somehow." I wonder if he then went on to say, "I've even got some black friends, and some of them are bloody shirt lifters, so I can't be racist, can I?" While he's, stood next to a rack of Reform leaflets covered in lies and propaganda about immigration and asylum seekers. Yes, Nick, we all have to make money, but for most of us, the idea of making money from people who are literally displaying swastikas in your pub and doing Nazi salutes would be where we draw the line. However, as usual, it's just lies and dishonesty again, because the event, dubbed the Real Rebellion, was being organised by Britain's most prominent neo-Nazi music promoter, Chad Charles. Look him up, he's a very interesting guy. Running any pub, even a shit one, is quite hard work and demands some level of cognizant ability quite far above the normal knuckle draggers that vote reform. So I find it hard to believe that Mr. Lowe didn't have any idea of what he had agreed to. As well as feigning ignorance of the actual Nazis that he'd invited to his pub, he was also lying about the frequency of his fascist fun days as well. Because Hope Not Hate's director of campaigns, George Lamming, has revealed that the Talbot has a long history of supporting neo-Nazi music gigs organised by the Blood and Honour Network. They were the first neo-Nazi organisation to be sanctioned by the UK government for their fascist ideology, and the title, even, Blood and Honour, was the motto of the Hitler Youth Programme in the 1930s in Germany. A Labour minister from the Treasury announced it had reasonable grounds to suspect Blood and Honour of being involved in terrorist activities through promoting and encouraging terrorism, seeking to recruit people for that purpose, and making funds available for the purposes of its terrorist activities. Nick Lowe was hoping that the neo-Nazi celebration of far-right twattery would make him as much as £12,000 on a day, apparently. And this was hopefully going to be bumped up a little bit further by him giving permission to the aforementioned Chad Charles to sell Nazi memorabilia at the event too. The event was cancelled after Hope Not Hate released their report on their investigation, but it turns out that Talbot had long been hosting such events and labelled them as just providing extreme right alternatives. Fascism, in other words. And they'd been long hosting bands playing songs with titles such as Aryan Soldiers, Pride is Our Will, and String 'em Up. Sounds very family friendly and inclusive, that, doesn't it? Co-owner Peter Flynn said both him and Mr. Lowe are reform voters and that they love Nigel Farage. They love him. Which is pretty vomit-inducing in itself. But he then went on to claim that the pub will not be a den for racists. Considering we've now had a load of reform voters found celebrating Hitler's birthday a few weeks ago, and that the Talbot has spent a decade hosting songs about being Aryan soldiers stringing Jews up, I'm not exactly filled with confidence about his assurances. Are you? Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I'm not at all surprised by this, and I doubt you are either, but I do feel that I have to add that the Talbot is not officially supported by Reform UK, and as far as I know, Nigel Frottage, the bollock-faced foghorn of ignorance, has yet to pay them a visit. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, though, and if so, he'll pretend not to know about its neo-Nazi connections, and if challenged, he'll mutter something about freedom of speech and probably change the subject. The feeble-minded fuckwits that believe every word he says will actually try to defend it. They came out in force on social media trying to defend people who were caught literally celebrating Hitler's birthday a few weeks back, talking utter shite about freedom of speech and two-tier Kia. So this'll be no different. I don't solely want to become an anti-reform channel. There are lots of twats, grifters, racists and right-wing wrong'uns that I'd also like to take the piss out of. But that being said, I'm expecting my next video to be 5 reasons Richard Tice is a twat. It is, however, my birthday on Sunday when I'll be 21 again for the 26th time, so you probably won't hear from me until Tuesday morning. If you want to support the channel before then, you'll find the links to PayPal, Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffee page, punching Nazis in the descriptions box, and the join button for memberships is, as always, below. Now that isn't all, I have to say, especially now if the Talbot decides to host another fascist fun day, but it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-ra-la. birthplace of gammon-baiting twat-bag Tommy Robinson himself. Now, I'm very proud of the fact that we live in a multifunctional... We don't live in a multifunctional... Well, we do live in a multifunctional society. It's just that some people's only function seems to be being an arse to everyone else. Anyway,